Meantime, the Brett Kavanaugh story continues. The New York Times dropped what they considered a bombshell online Saturday. The headline was, "Brett Kavanaugh fit in with the privileged kids, and she did not." And what it goes on to say is that there's a never that we heard story about Brett Kavanaugh with inappropriate behavior. However, what was left out of the New York Times story is the fact that the supposed victim doesn't remember a thing about it. And the guy who made the accusation won't talk about it. And their account of his memory is based on what other people say he said about it. So,
couple of things.
Where's the there?
Yeah, so this evidently there's a book coming out, and this is basically an excerpt from the book. And the writer here in the opinion section of the New York Times feels as though it's important enough to bring up that there was another story similar to what he claimed, what Debbie Ramirez claims, which he can remember, of something that happened in college that was inappropriate. So the aha moment is this guy, Max Steyer, who said, "Oh yeah, I heard of something else. I'm a Washington attorney," and the female student declined to be interviewed that Max Steyer is referring to. They also go on to paint a very sympathetic picture, and it might be deserved, I don't know, about Debbie Ramirez, a naive kid who goes to school with great grades, valedictorian, who was made fun of for being a cheerleader, made fun of for dropping her consonants, made fun of because she couldn't speak Spanish, made fun of because she had knockoff black and red Jordans. As I said earlier, well, how bad a place was this Ivy League school? And this must have been one of the most bullying cultures in the history of man, according to this column.
Well, and they framed it as if Brett Kavanaugh was the privileged one,
yes,
as the headline said. And
as if he was responsible.
Her. But the accusation that was made by Ramirez was thoroughly investigated by Republican and Democrat investigators in the Senate Judiciary Committee a year ago. A report was released. Ramirez refused to be interviewed by the committee investigators. She was interviewed by the FBI. So all of this we knew was not true and had no evidence based on a number of investigation interviews almost a year ago. But the New York Times then had an editor's note trying to kind of walk back what they had published, saying the book reports that the female student declined to be interviewed, and friends say that she does not recall the incident. That information has been added to the article. So where's the accusation is coming from Clinton-connected political operatives who, for some reason, are bringing up Brett Kavanaugh again when this was the #1 thing that united not just conservatives, but a lot of people throughout the country who said this is unfair, it's uncorroborated, and you're dragging someone's reputation through the mud for political reasons and doing the Me Too movement a huge disservice in the process because there are allegations that are not true being made.
So even though the alleged victim, according to the editor's note, does not recall what they're talking about, look at all the 2020 Democrats who have lined up and are ready to essentially get rid of this guy who's sitting on the Supreme Court, and let's move on and find somebody else. I wonder how that vote will turn out. Elizabeth Warren says Kavanaugh should be impeached. Kamala Harris says he must be impeached. Beto O'Rourke says he should be impeached. Cory Booker says Brett Kavanaugh should not be a Supreme Court justice.
Spartacus.
Castro said he should be impeached, and Bernie Sanders says, I support any appropriate constitutional mechanism to hold him accountable. This all based on this story, which, as we now have heard, that the alleged victim does not remember.
So none of the 2020 candidates are recalling their impeachment calls because they've actually thought this way since Brett Kavanaugh was under oath making his statements about this at his committee hearing last year.
Klobuchar says, I want more investigation. And so does Joe Biden, but in a long diatribe about it. The others are calling for the impeachment. Now that this other revelation is out, should these other candidates come out and say, hey, you know what, the more I think about it, he shouldn't be impeached. Maybe I should just go on to something else. They're probably not going to do that, my sense is. The President of the United States did not waste any time going to Brett Kavanaugh's defense. He goes, can't let Brett Kavanaugh give radical left Democrats liberal plus opinions based on threats of impeaching him over made-up stories, false allegations and lies. This is the game they play. Faking corrupt news is working overtime. Hashtag protect Kavanaugh. I think Kavanaugh's smart, and I think it's expected. Shouldn't play into it. He's got the job. Just do the job. Don't play into it. No words about it.
But think about this. Presidential candidates who want to be president next year are calling for the impeachment of a Supreme Court nominee, not because he's guilty of anything, because there's no evidence of any of the accusations, but simply because he was appointed by President Trump. That's why they want him to be impeached.
The cover of the New York Post today says Supreme Smear. It talks about the Miranda Devine column. Also inside, there's another one by the editors of the op-ed page. They say the larger motive here is plainly just to further blacken Kavanaugh's name in service of a political agenda. It is shameless and it is disgusting. What do you think about it? Email us, friends@foxnews.com.